Hello everybody, my name is Ray Pointer, and in this session today we're going to be looking at how to use think, feel, do to improve your reports and presentations. Too many presentations are boring. This is the old way of delivering data, but there are new ways that I'm going to suggest to you. We want to create action and change. When we do a report, we don't just want people to read it, we want them to think, and then we want them to do something after they receive that report or after they hear that presentation. So we're going to focus on think, feel, do. We combine the think, the facts, with feel, the emotional message, to create do, the actions that we want to happen after the presentation has been made or after the report has been read. Now, when I say do, there are lots and lots of different things which do can be. They depend on the situation. Maybe somebody is going to launch a new product. Maybe we want our client to choose option A. Perhaps there is customer dissatisfaction with the check-in process. So we want our client to go and address the customer dissatisfaction. Sometimes we are going to say what you need to do is more research. Sometimes what we're going to say what you need to do is cancel the project. Sometimes, good news, we will say the do you have to do is keep exactly what you're already doing. So every time we write a report or we do a presentation, we should always know what is the do that we want the audience, the client, to do afterwards. Now, when we're looking to find the do, we combine three separate elements. Your data and analysis, and perhaps that's what you normally focus on. But you should also focus on the business context and knowledge, what is already known. And most importantly, you should focus on the business question. Because if you combine the business question with your data analysis, maybe you will suggest something which is not viable. It's not possible to implement it because you haven't paid attention to the wider business information. Sometimes, for some business questions, the client can answer them without market research. We should always have a look to say, well, here is a business question. Here is the overlap with the information we already have. Can we solve this? If we can, that's great. We should recognize it. What about if we combine our analysis with the wider question, but we ignore the business question? Then what we will suggest will be irrelevant. It might be interesting, it might be true, it might be nice to know, but it will be irrelevant. We have to answer the business question. So finding the do is at the intersection of the business question, of your data and analysis, and the wider business context. We bring all three of these pieces together, and right at the middle, that is where we find the do that we want people to do. Now, this is a really important fact from behavioral economics. We want people to do something, which means we normally want them to change their behavior. And changing behavior is hard. The facts don't often change behavior. If we look at this cone near the apartment that I'm staying in, we've got bikes are prohibited in writing. We have a symbol saying bikes are prohibited. We have it written in English, and there is a blue flag also saying it. We could add another 5 languages. We could add a flashing beacon, and all we would do is repeat the facts. If we want people to change their behavior, we have to connect at an emotional level. So when people are talking about behavioral economics, one of the things they sometimes talk about is an elephant and rider. The rider is the rational brain, the thing that processes facts. The elephant is the automatic emotional element. So when we're trying to convince people to change their behavior, yes, we inform the rider. We use our facts and we use our information. This is the think process. This is traditional market research. But we need to motivate the elephant. We communicate at the emotional level. We want the audience to feel that what we're saying is right. It's not enough to appeal to people's logic. If we want the behavior to change, then we need to get the emotional message across. And we're going to shape the path to make the do easier. So we want to make sure that it's easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing. So if we want people to buy 2 products at the same time in the store, we need to make sure they are next to each other in the store so that it's easier to do the right thing. We shape the path, make it easier to do the right thing, and that helps ensure that the do really happens. Now, we start with think, but think does not start with your data and the analysis. Too often I see people looking at their data and they're diving in there too quickly. We start with the business question. What does the business need to do after it has answered this question? What are the actions the company wants to make? Then we look at the business context. For example, what information already exists? And once we know about the business question and we know about the wider context, then we can conduct our analysis to find the do. So the do we find is based on the facts. That is traditional thinking in market research, and that has not changed. Our recommendation will be based on the facts. And that will enable us to find the do that will take us forward. When we come to the presentation, we will inform the rider with our facts. We will motivate the elephant by using emotion, and we will shape the path so that things actually happen in the way that we want them to happen. Now, what you need to think about is that the think decides what is needed. The feel changes the behavior. So the do rests on the feel rests on the think. We build this together as a pyramid. We still find all of those facts. Then we create the emotional message that ensures the do actually happens. Let me give you an example from a really good book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. This is a study from 1994 in the United States, and they found that a bag of popcorn, like the one in the picture, contains 37 grams of saturated fat. They also found the recommended maximum was 20 grams. So they needed to use that information, the think, to think about the feel and the do. Now, the do was they wanted people to stop eating so much popcorn. It's nearly twice as much fat as you're supposed to have in a whole day. So they could have used a bar chart, but a bar chart really doesn't have any soul. It doesn't have any emotional message. They needed to find a way that would use feel to get this message across. So they called a press conference and they put on the table the bag of popcorn, and they also put on the table a fried breakfast, a McDonald's lunch, and a steak and trimmings dinner. And that is 37 grams of fat. So now we have a visual story. Look at that. One bag of popcorn is 3 unhealthy meals. Please don't buy the bag of popcorn and eat it all yourself because it's got so much fat. We have an emotional message that conveys that really strongly. So what happens in this new model is that we stop focusing on the study data and we start thinking about the narrative flow. How can we make a story? We don't think about using all of the data. We think about using the relevant story. Think about that bicycle example. Maybe we could put the message in 20 different ways saying, do not park the bicycle. It would not make it more convincing. We have to get to the emotional level. We've got to stop thinking about tables of data and start thinking about customer stories. Let's take individual customers and tell their stories. We can use videos, we can use anecdotes, we can use recordings, we can use diary comments to say, this is what it's like for an individual customer. We want to move away from tables to illustrations, to graphs, to cartoons, because they carry emotional messages much more powerfully than do paragraphs and tables. And we want to move away from reporting the information into persuading. Reporting has no soul, it's not emotional. We need to persuade people to get them to do our do. And when we persuade people, we are emotional in that process. And one final hint, collect photographs, images, and stories that enable you to make that emotional message. So the picture of the bicycles and the no parking sign was one. Here is another example of one that I've collected. So the outside path is a great example of design. And where people actually walk, is the user experience. So if we want people to follow the path, either we have to move the path to where people walk, or we will need to put a fence around and use this space differently in order to shape the path so that people do what we want them to do. Arigatou gozaimashita. Social media de follow shite kudasai. 質問がありますか？
お疲れ様でした。皆さん、質問があれば、質問の方テキストで、質問を打ち込んでください。よろしくお願いします。Just wait for 50 seconds. 質問がないようなので、私の方から一問だけ質問させていただきます。Hi, Ray. May I ask what you mean shaping the path in your context?
Absolutely. Good question. So a good example of shaping the path is if we want people to recycle more rubbish in their homes, we would change it so that the delivery for recycling, the collection of recycling, happened twice a week, but the collection for ordinary waste only happens once a week. In fact, in the UK now, to increase recycling, they've changed it so you have to wait 2 weeks before they collect the ordinary rubbish. Another example of shaping the path is in the hospitals, we want people to use the hand sanitizer. And they looked at why people were not using the hand sanitizer, and they saw the logic, the think was okay, and they'd even got the emotional level so that people were happy enough to sanitize their hands. But it wasn't right next to the doors. So they doubled the number of sanitizers, they put them right next to the doors, and that was shaping the path to make sure that people did the right thing.
Let me translate what you answered. まあ、お聞きに、ですね、例えば、廃品回収の方法を変えることによって、ゴミの回収ですね、方法を変えることによって、リサイクリングの、回るゴミの量を増やすとか、あるいは病院で、手を消毒するということが今奨励されているわけですけれども、そういった消毒の瓶の数を増やして、さらにそれをドアのすぐそばに置くことによって、病院を訪れた人がより手を消毒するようになると、そういった行動を促すというようなことが、シェーピング・ザ・パス、つまり道を作るというふうなことであるというふうに、ポインター氏が考えているということです。特に追加の質問もないようですので、今日のところはこれで終わりに、お開きにさせていただきたいと思います。ご清聴ありがとうございました。Thank you, Ray. Good presentation.
どういたしまして。